Good afternoon. As announced by the President, we will now proceed with the Dr. Honoris Causa. And in order to have the first laudatio, I would like to invite Miguel Maduro to come to the pulpit.
Thank you. Judge Marek Savchan was born in 1949 in Warsaw. He began his academic career in the 70s in the field of family law, in particular bioethics, an area to which he devoted both his doctoral and habilitation thesis at the University of Warsaw, where he later also became professor and vice-rector. In 1997, he became judge at the Polish Constitutional Court, having been its president between 1998 and 2006. In 2009, he was appointed judge at the European Court of Justice. In between these two judicial appointments, he had what I'm sure was the happiest period of his life, a visiting appointment at the European University Institute. Perhaps few lawyers represent as well the evolution of EU law than Judge Savchan. He is a Renaissance jurist. Having started by working on family law, his more than 200 publications, including over 50 monographs, cover almost any area of the law, from different subjects in private law to constitutional law and legal theory. His permanent intellectual curiosity for any legal issue justifies the fame he acquired in his judicial chambers for being more prepared on any case than any of his law clerks. Few are therefore as comfortable, and I would say as happy, in dealing with the extreme diversity of cases that EU law now brings to the Court of Justice. This diversity of legal interests is reflected in his most important scholarly contributions for Polish and European legal thinking. He was an early proponent of state liability for damages resulting from illegal actions of public authorities. And as in bioethics, he was equally the legal authority on the protection of privacy in Poland. With his entry into the Constitutional Court and recently the European Court of Justice, his intellectual interests have increasingly focused on legal interpretation, fundamental rights, and the relations between different legal orders, in particular national legal orders and the European legal order. Both as a judge and a scholar, his legal thinking expresses a strong attachment to open methods of interpretation. This manifests itself in different ways. First, by arguing that the interpretation of ordinary legal texts should be permanently permeated by their constitutional and European dimensions. Second, by extending this reasoning to the relationship between different constitutional and European legal orders themselves. And third, by recognizing the importance of the social and economic context of the law. This conception of the law and legal interpretation makes it particularly appropriate for the UI Law Department to have proposed the award of this honorary degree in light of our department's long commitment to an approach of law in context. What Judge Savchan perhaps never expected was for a personal anecdote to confirm his theoretical understanding of the law. Under Polish law, the consent of both parents is necessary in order to issue a passport for a minor child. Having requested this with his wife, Professor Savchan was confronted with a civil servant insistent that both him and his wife needed to be physically present at the same time to provide such consent, what was, for practical reasons, impossible on that occasion. The fact that Professor Savchan was considered one of the greatest specialists on parental care law at the time was of little use to him. He argued with the official that both consents could be given separately under the law, but the official disagreed, and instead gave him a lecture on what the law required, claiming that since she was in charge of applying the law, she knew better what the meaning of the law was. So much for academic authority. On the other hand, as an academic, I'm sure that Judge Safsan also saw in the episode a vindication of his own understanding of the law in action as being different from law in the books. Academics have this capacity to transform anything good or bad that happens to them in something that says something good about the thesis they defend. Your open understanding of the law is present in both your scholarly work and your judicial practice. This is certainly the product of the fact that Judge Safsan is the rare case of a judge that does not simply judges, but thinks about the act of judging. His judicial practice is permeated by a permanent reflection on the nature of that practice in an effort to embed his action in theory without at the same time ignoring that, as he has often remarked in the past, law only makes sense for citizens if they can make use of it as a practical instrument in their relations with public authorities. I want to conclude, however, by referring to someone else's description of you. One of our researchers was fortunate to have had the opportunity to do an internship at your chambers. I asked her if she could send me a couple of sentences with characteristics, personality traits that she attributed to you. I should say that she did not know, and does not know, that I was going to cite her. And that was not even my initial intention. But the way she described you was so genuine and warm that I thought that perhaps nothing could illustrate better who you are than the short message I received referring to what I expected would be only a couple of personality traits. I read keeping exactly the style with which I received it. This is what our researcher wrote to me in an email recalling her experience in your chambers. Thinking of Judge Safsan, these attributes come to my mind. Wise man, very patient and interested in other person's opinion, not afraid to ask questions, never losing out of sight the questions on justice and rights, fighting for other people's rights, helpful, not just judge, but also academic, curious. And I like particularly the last one, nice attitude towards his chamber members. I think this description is the description not only of a great scholar and a great judge, but a truly great man. For this reason, I'm honored and happy to present Marek Safjan for admission to the honorary degree of Doctor of the European University Institute.
Of Doctor of the European University Institute.
Thank you. Mrs. President, distinguished members of High Council of University, Professor, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a person awarded with academic honor usually begins by expressing thanks. Before doing so, I would like to share with you my personal reflection, or rather my own feeling, which is hard to free myself from. I am actually filled with growing apprehension at the thought that perhaps, quite unexpectedly, I have found myself in the circle of those of advancing years, numbering among them are revered characters who, at the close of their professional careers, regate with honors and about whom we can say that leur temps est accompli, and so it is high time for them to leave. However, this is not going to deny me to enjoyment at the moment. Hence, I am experiencing a little anxiety, confusing, and sense of ambivalence. Yet, over the apprehension, an egocentric sense of satisfaction and the spirit of perversity sustains me, no matter what others may think. I have no intention of winding down my professional activity. I wish to express my gratitude and thanks to the High Council of European University Institute for this honorable distinction, which propels me, hopefully, to do even greater things. Another reflection I wish to share with you concerns the symbolic meaning of this occasion from the perspective of my personal experiences. I belong to the generation of Europeans from Central Europe who, despite the dark clouds which gather today, despite the crisis and lesser enthusiasm for the European project, can still enjoy and invariably feel satisfied with the fact that we live today in integrated Europe with, for many years, was but impossible dream, an abstract idea, which was totally beyond our reach. The fact we are today together, so obvious of most of you who belong to another generation, for me formed the basis of my strong conviction that over the almost last 30 years, something really important has happened in Europe, something which put an end to the most dramatic division of the continent, which I want to believe has turned away the negative tides of our common European history. Sharing this conviction with you is my moral duty, especially now that at another difficult moment, many Europeans are losing this, the sense of right measure and perspective, not being able to appreciate how far we have come in creating what is the freedom and democracy in an integrated Europe. Many Europeans are experiencing today only discouragement and frustration. However, the future of Europe depends on what will remain in the heads of young Europeans, whom most of you here represent. If everything is possible on condition that we want it enough, as the well-known saying goes, the opposite being that nothing will be possible if we lose our willingness, determination, and hope for achieving what was once our dream. Common Europe is most of all an intellectual concept, and only after that manifests itself as a material institutional entity encumbered with numerous problems which to be faced every day. It is the power of idea which decides the success of the European project, but only if we cherish and appreciate it will be able to meet the challenges of the present time effectively. Let us return to our university. I feel exceptionally honored to be distinguished by this university where, about which I am eminently qualified given my experience at different academic institutions, to recognize a special ambiance of friendly cooperation between the professor and student from such diverse academic milieu and tradition. I spent a year here under the Ferdinand Brodel scholarship program, and I consider this year to be one of my best. Maybe thanks to the mysterious Spiritus Loci. European University has borrowed some of the oldest medieval Italian tradition of the university in Padua and Bologna, which attracted young people from all corners of Europe seeking the truth and the gnosis. What is the mythical gnosis for the European University today? Beyond doubt, it is a search for answer to the question about different dimensions and forms in which the European idea takes shape. It is a great opportunity, but also a huge responsibility for those who form the community of scholars and students united by their commitment to the project that is the bravest political, economic, and axiological concept which has ever appeared in the history of our continent. Best efforts are needed not to lose momentum and dynamism in the years to come. All the harder, knowing the pressure of the worries and problems to be faced. To return to my previous thought, if Europe is primarily an intellectual project, an embodiment of a courageous idea, it is the European University that has to make an exceptional and special contribution here. In my present capacity as judge at the European Court of Justice, I should say that nowhere more than here does one see the migration from powerful ideas and concepts into realization of the project and correspondingly subsequent creation of the European Union legal order. Soon we celebrate not only the 60th anniversary of the European Court of Justice, but also the 50th anniversary of the famous Van Gent and Loos judgment, which is the strongest expression of creative and exceptionally imaginative idea for Europe. This famous ECJ judgment was a milestone in the creation of European Union legal space when, for the first time, it stated that, I quote, "The community constitutes a new legal order of international law for the benefits of which the states have limited their sovereignty right, albeit in between limited fields, and the subject of which comprise not only the member state but also their nationals." Only one simple sentence, but how meaningful. Without the imagination, courage, and determination shown by the justices at the time, we would be more distant from where we are now. In the history of ideas, nothing was ever more realistic than utopia. All this juncture, let me call the famous sentence expressed by one of the greatest creators of European concept, Richard Kalergi, almost 90 years ago. Tout grand événement historique a commencé comme utopie pour finir comme réalité. Every great historic event begins as utopia to end up as reality. In other words, a reality deprived of its utopian background can lose not only its aesthetic value, but also its internal impulse for the future development. 50 years ago, the European judges did formulate the utopian concept, which became the fundament of today's European reality. The European University can and should be breeding ground of good ideas for Europe. It has to be an authentic brainstorming platform for progression of the European vision, not forgetting its practical application and the intellectual backdrop for the European institutions. It does not mean assuming responsibility over justices and politicians, but if it often said that modern democracy is based on the judicial governance, let us not forget that the greatest motor power of the 21st century is now intellectual governance. Never before in the history of our civilization has so much depended on good universities and on the quality of their product. To tell you the truth, I am happy representing both kinds of governance and being in the dual role of justice and professor. I treat my activity at the European Court of Justice a true continuation of my earlier intellectual venture, not least here in Florence. It is to my great satisfaction that my ties with European University are solemnly and strongly affirmed today. My thought and friendly feelings return to this place, to which I am so closely tied. Also, for this reason, I do regret that our institution, the court and the university, cannot change places. I can only imagine how creative and perfect ECJ case law would be if the European justices could experience the charm of Badia and Schifanoia gardens and capture from the air the verses of Boccaccio, whose spiritual presence is so inspiring for the professor and the student alike. I have to concede that the demand to change the location would be very selfish of me, and perhaps not very friendly toward your distinguished university. And therefore, please remember this place entails special duties. A duty to continue its best traditions, creativity, and the courage of your vision. This is what I wholeheartedly wish all of you. Thank you for lending an ear and all the kind words and gestures bestowed on me today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Owing to health reasons, Jacques Delors was not able to travel to Florence. Laszlo Bruce, as head of the SPS department, will collect the honorary degree on his behalf. I would like to invite Adrien Héritier to give the laudatio.
I'm very honored to be able to present the laudatio for Jacques Delors. Jacques Delors was born in Paris in 1925. He studied economics, and after his studies, he held a number of posts in the French banking sector. He became a member of the French Confederation of Christian Workers. He entered politics in 1969 as an advisor for social affairs for Gaullist Prime Minister Chaban-Delmas. In 1974, he joined the French Socialist Party. And then he made a stop into European politics and became a member of the European Parliament in 1979 until 1981. After that, he moved back into French national politics at a high level and became Minister of Economic and Financial Affairs under François Mitterrand from 1981 until 1984. During his activities as a minister, it was a prime concern to him to reconcile social policy concerns with market economies and to align French Socialist Party with European social democracy. After his mandate as a minister in 1984, Jacques Delors moved back into European politics, and that's when he really constituted his fame as the big, very important commissioner of the European politics. He became president of the European Commission in 1985 and had 3 terms as a president of the European Commission: Delors I, Delors II, Delors III. It's fair to say that he was the most powerful and the most influential commissioner so far, and the longest too. And particularly against the background that he entered actually the European arena at a point in the Commission where we were in a phase of Eurosclerosis. It was called Eurosclerosis, and the European project was stalling. Delors, as an actor, had an immense faith in the European project, and he set about immediately to bring the ambitious single market program on its way. He wrote, together with Lord Cockfield, the very important white paper on the single market, which underpinned then the creation of the Single European Act in 1986, which was the groundwork for the introduction of the single market. Very importantly, it foresaw the introduction of qualified majority rule for single market issues, which sped up European decision-making processes. And this led then in 1992 to the Maastricht Treaty, which in a way established the first stage of these three planned stages of the Delors program, that is economic union, monetary union, and then political union. So he laid the foundations for the economic and the monetary union, and the next step should have been stage 3, the political union. Delors, I have to mention that, also pushed very much and obtained the introduction of the Committee of Regions, which was enshrining the idea of cohesion between regions in member states, but also between member states. And very importantly, too, under his presidencies of the Commission, there were important enlargement rounds. The Southern Enlargement Round, Portugal and Spain, a Northern Enlargement Round, Finland and Sweden, and Austria, not Northern, obviously. And very importantly, too, with the fall of the Berlin Wall, then an opening up towards Eastern Europe. And it was under his presidency as well that the applications of Hungary and Poland to the European community were, European Union were begun. In brief, one can say that Delors is one of, or if maybe not the, if not the most important politician in the European Union history. He gave the community a sense of direction and dynamism. And now it's almost paradoxical, ironic situation that, of course, the situation is in need of direction and dynamism again in a new sense, in a new, different context. And what does now Delors, as one of the fathers of the monetary union, say to the present crisis? Just a few quotes from recent interventions he made. The crisis stems from a faulty execution of the monetary union, and politicians looked away when the Stability Pact was not maintained. But he also concedes faults in the design of the monetary union. He said at one point, the Brits had a point in 1985 when saying that single currency without a single state doesn't work. And in a similar vein, EMU came into force without strong central power, which would be able to stop member states to incur further debts. And he gives warnings not to destroy the common heritage of the fathers of Europe. Let us hope that in these times of discontent and reorientation and new beginnings, in a different context, in a transformed context of the overall world situation and European situation, we may learn something from Delors' high spirit for the European project and use it as a model for us. As he did, This spirit he used when he, in 1985, became president of the Commission in a period of stalling and brought new life into the development of the European Union. We should kind of model and use this sense of spirit to breathe new life with our activities into the European project, to see it through into a viable and prosperous future for all member states and all citizens of the European Union. For this high merits for the creation of a united Europe, I would like to present Jacques Delors for admission to the honorary degree of Doctor of the European University Institute.
On behalf of the University, I admit Jacques Delors to the honorary degree of Doctor of the European University Institute.